Hello and welcome to another edition of Hit the Pacecar here on X, YouTube, and you may be listening on Spotify. So follow, subscribe, like, leave a comment, share, do whatever the hell you want. But we're going to be talking about some things here today, and of course, I'm joined by my co-hosts as always, Cory and Tyler. Cory, how are we doing here today?
Doing fantastic, man. Atlanta was awesome, and I'm just ready for more NASCAR, dude. Can't wait to start talking about it.
Yeah, Atlanta was a phenomenal weekend. I was a huge fan of the way Atlanta went this weekend. Dale Jr. calls it the hottest ticket in NASCAR, and I got to agree. I still really miss old Atlanta, but I like this new version of Atlanta. It actually shows you have to actually be skillful at this sort of racing, which makes it interesting, unlike Daytona and Talladega, where it doesn't take as much skill nowadays. But Tyler, how are we doing today?
Doing great, man. NASCAR's back and alive. Things are feeling good. Things are intense. Things are great. Can't get better than right now.
Yeah, NASCAR is on the forefront of pop culture right now, of American sports, not just American motorsports, on American sports. We're getting all sorts of promotion. We're getting more viewers than we have in a while. I'm very interested to see how the Auto Trader 400 viewership went. We'll probably get some sort of announcement on how the viewership went probably tomorrow or Thursday or something. We'll have to see. They're pretty inconsistent when it comes to when they release those viewership numbers, but am very curious post Daytona and once again Tyler Reddick winning back to back. And we will be talking about Tyler Reddick amongst a lot of other things. We do have some topics to go through before we end up getting to the hot Atlanta talk. And we'll start with this. We started off last week's show talking about JJ, Jimmy Johnson, Superman. And once again, we are going to start the show with talking about Jimmy Johnson, but he's going to be playing crew chief. Jimmy Johnson is going to be a crew chief at St. Pete for the Craftsman Truck Series for his good buddy and former IndyCar Series teammate in a way, Dario Franchitti. And this is really cool. It reminds me a lot of, I think it was last year when Dale Jr. stepped in to be the crew chief for Zilich. It reminds me of that a little bit. But Jr. was kind of almost forced into that situation. He at least felt forced. Jimmy Johnson just is like, I have good chemistry with Dario. Me and him are like great buddies, and I think I got the knowledge for this. And Tricon was like, Jimmy, you can get yourself on the pit box. I think this is a very interesting story. I'm very curious on how it's all gonna go for Dario, for Jimmy. I'll ask Tyler first on this one. Tyler, how do we feel about this Jimmy Johnson being a crew chief for Dario Franchitti?
And I thought that's what Jimmy was gonna do when he got out the car. So I'm surprised it took him this long to get up there, honestly. Really surprised he was an owner before he was a crew chief. Like, Jimmy didn't seem like the type of guy that was gonna walk away. He always seemed like the type of guy that was gonna be involved like hard heavy into the cars. I never expected ownership over crew chief.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. Jimmy is a very intelligent guy, which is one of the reasons why I think he has gotten into the ownership role because he wants to get into the business side of things. But with how many years he worked with Chad Knaus, and Chad Knaus is arguably one of the best, if not the best, crew chief in NASCAR history, I kind of expected the same thing. I kind of expected him to maybe not necessarily be a crew chief, but maybe be a car chief, maybe something like that, and he'll be hopping on top of the pit box. I assume he's been calling Chad Knaus all week. He's probably had long conversations with Chad all week trying to figure out how he's going to do this. I think this is very cool of Jimmy Johnson. He's just really ingraining himself back into NASCAR after being away for a couple of years, and then he's been back here the last couple of years. But overall, he's been pretty quiet. He has dealt with a lot of personal issues for sure. That's well noted, well in the news. All the personal issues he has dealt with. I don't have to necessarily talk about them, but it's great. It's great to see him just ingrained with the sport once again. Cory, how do you feel about this? Jimmy Johnson, Superman, is going to be a super crew chief for Dario.
I can't wait to hear the in-car audio.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
listen to the radio during that race. It's going to be interesting to figure out how he is as a crew chief. I mean, he's calm. He was always calm as a driver, I feel like. But as a crew chief, I wonder if he's going to have the same, type of speech, and how him and Dario are going to be together, responding back and forth in that scenario. It'll be cool to listen to that audio.
Yeah, I think the audio is going to be really cool and really great to listen to because those two are really good friends, great buddies. I think there's going to definitely probably be some jokes on the radio. I'm very curious if there could be potentially tension at some point in the race. I'm very curious about that as well because sometimes two good buddies can't necessarily work in that sort of fashion together. So I am very curious on how it is going to go for Jimmy and Dario at St. Pete. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Jimmy Johnson playing crew chief, getting on top of the pit box for the #1 Tricon Garage Toyota, and Dario Franchitti making his return to NASCAR? All right, let's move on to our second of 3 main topics that we have. And this one, in my opinion, is a pretty big deal. I think some people have really noticed how big of a deal this may be, and some aren't as honed in on it. And one particular group of people that weren't too honed in on how important this was has to be Team Bowtie Chevrolet, as they have lost Keelan Harvick to Toyota Racing Development. And I've said this multiple times, I'd probably give the edge to Chevrolet on what my favorite manufacturer is in the Cup Series. Once Dodge gets there, they're going to end up being my favorite. I would give a slight edge to Bowties. That's where my preference is. But when it comes to a racing development program, Toyota is leaps and bounds better than every other development program, and this just shows once again how great they are at a development program. They were able to get Keelan and Kevin Harvick to walk away from Chevrolet. Ford don't really have a development program. I think some people have put Ford out there. Ford has really sorry to the Ford fans, but y'all have nothing to offer the young drivers. Y'all have nothing of a development program over at Ford, which is kind of embarrassing. But nonetheless, Keelan Harvick and Kevin Harvick walk to Toyota, and I think this is a genius move. Going to provide Keelan a lot of opportunities, whether it's getting in different cars or different sponsorships. They just do it the best. TRD do it the very best, in my opinion. And I want to send this to what I think is one of the bigger Chevrolet diehards that I know, and that is Tyler. Tyler, how do you feel about this move? Kevin Harvick, Keelan Harvick leaving Chevrolet to go to Toyota.
I can completely understand why Kevin did it. I mean, like you said, Toyota's absolutely killing it in the game. You can't get better when it comes to the development that Toyota's doing. I mean, they're putting the money in forefront ahead for everybody. Like, you can't beat that. But at the same time, man, it's sad that Chevy couldn't bring it together and get him signed up. Like, I don't know. That Hendrick sponsorship going away is what bothers me the most. We just watched how many years of Hendrick sponsor that kid, and that's just gone now because Hendrick's not going to sponsor Toyota. That's not happening ever. So I don't know, man. It's a little disappointing for me.
I would like to make a note that I did tweet Mamba Smith. I replied to one of Mamba Smith's post saying that, well, HendrickCars.com is gone. I said something like that, and he responded, "You sure?" And Mamba Smith has a very close relationship with the Harvicks, and I would also like to note that Rick Hendrick does own a few, not a lot, but owns a few Toyota dealerships. But I agree with you. I don't think we're going to see HendrickCars.com come back, but with the way that Mamba responded to me on X, and the fact that Rick Hendrick owns some Toyota dealerships, and I had to look it up. Hey, HendrickCars.com on a Toyota. And I only found one time where HendrickCars.com got put onto a Toyota, and that was for Boris Said in a GT3 race last year. But at that time, Boris Said was preparing to drive the number 17 HendrickCars.com Chevrolet in the Xfinity Series at the time, now the O'Reilly Series. And they didn't have Chevrolets in that field, so he drove a Toyota. That's the only time I've ever seen HendrickCars.com on a Toyota. So I would be very surprised to see HendrickCars.com return with Keelan Harvick, but I am keeping an open mind to it. I do think Mobil 1 and ExxonMobil and everybody over there is going to take a big step up and sponsor the living hell out of this kid of Keelan, because Keelan has a very, very bright future in the sport. I would consider him the best young prospect below the age of 16. That is my opinion on him. I think Keelan's 13, about to turn 14 here pretty soon. So we'll have to see how that all works out. But Cory, how do you feel about this? Keelan Harvick and Kevin Harvick making the move over to Toyota.
I think it's surprising. I think the second you get a HendrickCars.com sponsorship, you'd assume that driver's going to be Chevy as long as he plays his cards right. But it looks like Toyota sniped him. And honestly, it's awesome for him, awesome for Keelan, awesome for Kevin Harvick. Like, you got to take it when it comes. That's a great opportunity. But yeah, no, Chevy and Ford missed out. And honestly, thinking about it, dude, other than Penske, man, Ford is missing out a lot. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I swear you have a bunch of teams leaving Ford, and other than Ryan Blaney's championship and the ones Logano stole from everybody else, like, Penske doesn't have a bright future, in my opinion, other than Blaney and what they have at Penske right now. Like, what do they have for a development program?
Absolutely nothing, in my opinion. Ford, I think we kind of briefly talked about this last year when we heard that Dodge was coming in, that a lot of Ford teams in the O'Reilly series were switching over to Chevrolet, including Haas factory team, which we will talk about a little bit more about Haas factory team and what happened at Atlanta. But Ford, once Dodge gets to the Cup Series, I am very worried about Ford potentially disappearing from the sport. I would still be very surprised if they do, but I am keeping an open mind to that because they don't really have any trucks. They only have the AM Racing Fords, I'm pretty sure, in the O'Reilly series. I'm pretty sure those are the only Fords that they have out there. And then the Cup Series, you have RFK and you have Penske. That's it. Everybody else is either Chevy or Toyota. So we'll have to see what happens with all of that. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Keelan Harvick signing with Toyota Racing Development? All right, let's move on to our third topic before we end up starting to talk about Hot Atlanta, and that is this. It was in the news last week. We were potentially getting NASCAR 2, Chris Gabehart versus Joe Gibbs. And there's a lot of stuff being allegedly put out there, like Chris Gabehart apparently created a Google Drive, labeled it Spire, and started putting a bunch of setups and certain information and certain documents into that folder, was printing out a bunch of documents. A whole bunch of stuff is being alleged when it comes to Chris Gabehart and what he did with Joe Gibbs Racing. And he officially is part of Spire Motorsports now. Within the last week, he's officially signed on to be, I think, the competition director. I may be mistaken on the role. It might be something else, but I think he's the new competition director now at Spire Motorsports. That got made official a couple days ago. Plus, it sounds like Gibbs wants the upwards of $8 million in this lawsuit. So this could get extremely nasty. And I felt like Gabehart has been one of the best crew chiefs that Joe Gibbs Racing has ever had. I've heard some people talk about it, and I would concur to a certain degree that he, in a way, revived Denny Hamlin's career, because Denny Hamlin wasn't struggling, but he wasn't looking like how he did in his very early years. And then he started competing for championships again, and he's still competing for championships right now. But I want to get thoughts from the boys on this one. Cory, how do we feel about this Chris Gabehart, Joe Gibbs lawsuit and potentially getting NASCAR Part 2?
Man, the second, this, I can't even think of the word, but this whole situation's kind of shit, to be honest. And I listened to Denny Hamlin's podcast, Actions Detrimental. I was sitting there the way he explained it makes complete sense as to why Joe Gibbs would want to sue, because that information's private. That information's 10 years old, 20 years old. It's private information that they've built their foundation off of that he potentially just saved to a hard drive to bring over to Spire. And Spire's relatively new, so like it's it's a damning situation if it's true, and it kind of sucks just because the second we've talked about it with Michael Jordan and being in victory lane twice, and next thing you know, another lawsuit's happening, and NASCAR's in the news about a lawsuit again. It's just like I just want them to get over with it, like just end it quick, figure it out, and let's move on.
Yeah, I hope it all gets figured out. I will make a slight argument for Chris Gabehart here because back in the day, before internet and was a big thing, before Google Drive existed and stuff like that, it was kind of a regular thing to see crew chiefs and engineers take information from team to team. It was a pretty normal thing back then. But now with the internet, with how easy it is to track what people are doing, it's so easy to just transfer information from place to place. That could be a big part of this. So I will give a slight argument to Gabehart in that respect, that this Chris Gabehart is not the first crew chief that's stolen information from his former team. He's definitely not the first, and I guarantee he's not going to be the last either. And that's a big saying in NASCAR: if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. I'm not big on cheating, but it's kind of part of NASCAR's culture and its foundation, I would say, in a very weird way. So I will give the slight argument to Gabehart, but if what is being alleged is true, I think that's taking it too far. I'm all for maybe, hey, we did this when I was at Gibbs. Hey, we did this when I was at Gibbs. I'm all for that. But actually stealing documents themselves and putting them on Google Drive or wherever you're putting them, or printing them out and then showing them the actual documents, I think that takes it a little bit too far. If that is what is happening, I have to say again, this is allegedly. This is what's being alleged from Joe Gibbs versus Chris Gabehart. We'll have to see how it all pans out. But Tyler, how do you feel about the potential of NASCAR 2? This won't be as big of a court case as the 2311 Front Row Motorsports court case, but this could potentially get really nasty and potentially ruin a reputation of one of the greatest crew chiefs we've had over the last 10 or 15 years.
I don't think it matters how this plays out. I think it all depends on what information was given, right? So it really doesn't matter what he took, because if this is information that he's given them anyway, does it matter if he has pictures of the setups that he's set up? Does it matter if he has the information that he's given and he's the one that's created? Because he's just going to go do it anyway. So yeah,
Very
he might
true.
have a picture of it, but it doesn't matter. He has that information. He's one of the smartest, like you said, he's one of the smartest guys out there. He doesn't need those pictures. He can easily go there and say, this is exactly what I did there. This is exactly what I'm going to do here. So, in my opinion, he's not going to damn himself and go through all of this unless it was actually worth his time. So it better be damn good information, and if not, they're gonna look stupid doing all this, and it's gonna look like it's repercussionary because he didn't do what they wanted him to do in the end. So personally, I don't know. I know that he didn't make Baby Gibbs as happy as he
Oh
was
yeah,
supposed to
I
be,
heard there was
so
drama between them. Yeah.
there's always has been. So I don't know. Something smells a little fishy in here, and we all know that that man's smart enough to do whatever he did at the other team with absolutely no help and no pictures to do it. So I don't know. At the end of the day, I agree. Chris Gabehart should be just left alone. Like you said, people going back and forth with information all the time. I get documents or documents, but whatever. Who cares? He already has the information. If it was that prior to you and that mattered that much, you should have signed his contract and made sure he never left your company.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. And that's one thing I was hearing a lot when Gabehart was working with Baby Gibbs. I heard they didn't have good chemistry. I heard there was drama even potentially between them. So that could be a big part of it. And I concur with a lot of the things you say, Tyler, because either way, I think Gabehart was gonna bring this information to Spire. I think the only thing that Gibbs got him on is there's potentially, allegedly, some sort of paper trail. And giving information from team to team is against the rules of NASCAR. I don't know if it would necessarily be against the law per se. I'm not exactly sure. I don't think so, but it would be against the rules of NASCAR and probably against the rules of whatever contract he originally signed with Joe Gibbs Racing. So I think it's just people are hurt. I think people are just hurt. I think that's really all it is. Like, oh, he took my information and gave it to the other team. Ah, man, there's nothing I can do about that. And then they found out that there was something they can do about that because there's potentially a paper trail with this. And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. It's all semantics. And like I said before, this isn't the first time and it's not the last time that a crew chief or an engineer or even a pit crew member or somebody has stolen or given information from one team once he moves to the next team, gives all the information that he learned or they learned at their prior race team. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about this Chris Gabehart, Joe Gibbs lawsuit and potentially getting NASCAR Part 2? I would also like to note, right when we were finishing up this week's edition of Hit the Pacecar, that Joe Gibbs, I'm reading from my phone because this is brand new news. Joe Gibbs Racing has filed a motion for temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction requiring Chris Gabehart to cease and desist working or performing any service for Spire Motorsports or any similar team he has provided for. And that could potentially go for 18 months. So this is going to get very nasty. All right, let's start moving on to our weekend stories with the weekend rundown from ECHOPARK Speedway. We had the Cup Series, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and the Craftsman Truck Series in Hotlanta, in Hampton, Georgia, Atlanta Motor Speedway, ECHOPARK Speedway, whatever you would like to call it. That's where they were at this past weekend. And overall, I thought it was a great weekend of racing from front to back. I really enjoyed the racing at Atlanta. I want to get the boys' thoughts real quickly on just the week before we start talking about the Truck Series. I want to get their thoughts quickly on the weekend as a whole and how they feel about this version of Atlanta. Cory, how did you feel about the weekend as a whole, and how do you feel about this current version of Atlanta that we have?
I think a lot of people thought Atlanta was gonna when they repaved and they did what they did with Atlanta, everyone thought it was gonna suck. And I think we all probably did in the beginning, but we've been proven wrong. Like Atlanta has become easily, maybe honestly, probably the most entertaining track in NASCAR. Like it's just it's what we want out of Daytona and Talladega that we are currently not getting. It's
Yeah.
awesome. It's you can take your runs and dive below somebody and it not be, oh, you're getting wind tunneled right back. You're getting sucked back behind everybody just because you got out of
Pause.
line. You know?
Yeah.
Get pause for that, sure. But yeah, no, it's awesome. And then this weekend showed it. Like every single race was entertaining. Every single race had its moments where we thought everyone was gonna wreck and they didn't. And I don't know, it was just entertaining the whole race. You watch the entire race, it's awesome. Unlike Daytona and Talladega, where you just have to turn into the last 10 laps of a stage.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with you. And I've heard a lot of people say it like we're wrong. We were wrong about Atlanta being a bad racetrack, a bad race. And I was listening to Mark Martin's podcast yesterday, and I'll have to agree with him 100%. I was very wrong about Atlanta and about this style of track working and producing good racing, and not just good racing, but skillful racing as well. But I will double down. I still miss the crap out of the old Atlanta, and I still prefer the old Atlanta over this current version of Atlanta, just from a more skillful perspective, saving tires, this and that. I made a comment on, I think I made the comment on Mark Martin's podcast as well. I made a comment like, I wish I can go back in time and tell Marcus Smith to reconstructure Texas like that and then leave Atlanta the way it was, just with fresh asphalt, putting some fresh asphalt on the racetrack. If I could go back in time, that's what I would do, because Texas is a shit show of a racetrack right now. And also, it wouldn't have been as cold. It wouldn't have been nearly as cold in Texas as it was in Atlanta, because I know those fans were hating life in the cold and in the wind, and I respect all the fans that showed up. But I am a big fan of Echo Park Speedway. I would agree, Cory. It's probably the most exciting race on the circuit right now. I'd say is Echo Park Speedway, Atlanta Motor Speedway. But Tyler, how do we feel? How do we feel about this version of Atlanta compared maybe to the old version of Atlanta? And how did you feel about the weekend as a whole we had at Echo Park?
I don't know, man. This track has absolutely proved that they did the right thing. We were all absolutely wrong. We all panicked for no reason. Like everybody said, it's given us everything that we've asked for from Daytona, from Talladega, from all these tracks that just aren't giving it to us anymore. So, and it's cool because it's fast, it's happening faster, it's not so long of a race, things like that. It feels quicker in the moment. So that's the best part of it all. I mean, you can't beat that when it comes to NASCAR. Nothing you hate more than a race that drags. So with Atlanta, you're always watching every moment.
Yeah, you gotta have your eyes on the TV 120% of the time when you hit Hot Atlanta Motor Speedway, and it produces great racing. And the way the track is definitely aging a little bit slower than I expected it to, but I am noticing the age. The cars are becoming more ill handling. The longer the run goes, the more ill handling you see. You see some cars begin to drop back near the end of the run because they've either used up their tires a little bit more or whatever the case may be. And I'm very curious on how this track is going to be 5 years from now. I'm very interested on how it's going to race 5 years from now. But once again, a great weekend. The only negative part I have from the weekend is there wasn't any practice. That's the only negative I have from the weekend. Other than that, I really enjoyed the Atlanta weekend for NASCAR, the second weekend of the season. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about the Atlanta weekend as a whole? And how do you feel about the current version of Hot Atlanta? All right, let's move on to the Truck Series, and we'll talk about a couple of things that happened in the Truck Series. The first thing, and I think this was probably the most talked about thing on social media when it came to the Truck Series race, and that was that it was a timed race. And I'm kind of at two minds when it comes to this, but I want to hear the boys' opinions on this. Tyler, how did you feel about there being a timed race? They decided to end the race at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Time and blaze it.
I absolutely loved it. I mean, we didn't have much of an option, right? I mean, what they could have done was either stop the race at a time point, stop the race and finish the race after another race, or stop the race and finish the race at 9 o'clock in the morning. So personally, all of that seemed like too much. I mean, you lose the hype of the race. You know how far they're gonna make it in. I mean, to re-rack for 10 laps would have been stupid. So I think they did the right thing. I think it gave it its own weird little bit of an excitement in its own weird way. I don't know why, but I kind of enjoyed it. Like, they got 50 seconds left. Like, I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. I don't know why, but I'm enjoying this right now. But personally, I liked it. I mean, if for all the options that we had, that was the best option that they had, and they went with it. I think I'm enjoying NASCAR just sticking to what they want to do, like not drawing a race out for 3 or 4 days at a
Not throwing
time.
shit at
Just
the wall.
all right, this is what we're gonna. No, they're just this is what we're gonna do, and it makes sense. I mean, it's no different than when we're at a racetrack with no lights, right? I mean, if there's no lights, there's only so much we can do. Same shit. So, I think it worked out well for them. Personally, it made me a little bit more excited. I don't know why, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm at two minds of this. If anybody follows me on X, I was pretty upset about there being a timed race, but then I thought about it more and more, and I heard other people's opinions on it, and I wouldn't say I'm completely shifted on, oh, the timed race was the greatest thing they could have done. I'm not on that side of it. I'm very mixed about it. Uh, I do agree with you, Tyler. I don't think there is very much NASCAR and the O'Reilly series could have done in this situation, unfortunately. And I kind of already thought it. And then I saw Bob make a post about it, kind of saying my sentiment. And that is if all the races were on Fox this weekend, I don't think there would have been any issues. I think the Truck Series race would have went full length, and then the O'Reilly Series would have came on Fox or Fox Sports 1. I think where the issue really lied on where they weren't able to finish the race is that they were gonna cut in to CW's time slot. They were gonna cut in to CW's pre-race activities, and CW paid for that slot. They earned that spot. It's their right to keep that time slot if they want to, and I think that's ultimately what it came down to on why they decided to end it at 4:20 p.m. Eastern time, was to give plenty of room for the O'Reilly Auto Parts series and the CW to get their time slots in, because then some people are going to turn into the CW at 5 o'clock or 4. I think the pre-race actually started at, I think, like 4:30 or something like that. But people would have tuned in at, let's say they tuned in at 4:30 and they're not watching the O'Reilly series and they got to wait a half hour. Some people might not even watch. Some casuals might not even watch the race. Oh, they're not showing the race right now. They're showing it later. I'm not even gonna watch. So that's probably, I'd say, the number one reason why that had happened. A part of my mind was like, well, if you can't finish the whole entire race, because luckily the truck drivers kept it very clean throughout the race, and we were able to finish the race with around 10 laps to go. And if they didn't keep it clean, if it was a normal Craftsman Truck Series race, they probably would have ended the race with like 50 or 60 laps to go. So at the beginning of the race, I was like, we should just run the race tomorrow. Let's just not run the race at all today and just run the full race in the morning tomorrow. So there's definitely a part of my mind that still was like, I wish we ran the full race on Sunday morning, but then they wouldn't have gotten as many viewers and this and that. So I understand it. But Cory, how did you feel about them doing a timed race for Atlanta in the Truck Series?
I think NASCAR got lucky with how it played out. I think they made the right decision. I'm of the opinion that I still like Friday Truck Series, Saturday O'Reilly, Sunday Cup. They should have done the race on Friday, and then you
I couldn't
avoid
agree
this, and
more.
then, if there's weather on Friday, we run it how we did on Saturday. But yeah, it kind of all came down to TV. It all came down to the CW has their time slot. It was the only option that made sense, and it happened to work out. We lost 10 laps of racing. Boo-hoo. The race still ended up looking great. My only gripe was when there was 20 minutes left, they should have had a 20-minute timer ticking down the
The whole
entire
time.
time,
Yeah, I
so
agree.
fans would know what's going on and not, oh, it's the white flag. Like,
Yeah,
that
they
was
kept on
dumb
taking
to
it off the
me.
screen.
But yeah, other than that, they got lucky because it played out perfectly. Not perfectly. They should have got the whole race in, but we lost out on 10 laps.
As good as
Like,
it could have gotten.
at the end of the day, before the race, I could understand why people thought it was stupid, but it turned out perfect. It worked out well, and I think everyone was happy with the result.
Yeah, I don't think it could have went really better if we didn't have that accident with Dawson Sutton. I forget who else was involved in that, but I remember Dawson Sutton in the 26 and that War Rackley machine got pretty demolished. And I think the truck even got lit on fire for a second. If we didn't have that wreck with Dawson Sutton, we probably would have gotten in the entire race. So they kept it clean. That was the only wreck all race was Dawson Sutton, which is surprising. First of all, it's Atlanta, one of the toughest tracks on the schedule, one of the most hardest racing tracks on the schedule. And anybody that's watched the Craftsman Truck Series over the last couple years know that ignoring the stage cautions, we're probably getting at least 4 or 5 or 6 cautions in a race. So the drivers kept it very clean. I think they knew that they were up against the clock and they wanted to keep it clean. That way they can get in the whole race. I think that was probably a directive from the crew chiefs, from the spotters. Hey, we're on a time limit here, so just don't be too aggressive because then we're not going to be able to finish the race. We're going to end up finishing with like 50 laps to go or something. And I do like the fact that NASCAR told them at the very beginning of the race, because a lot of the times that we've had these timed races, like for darkness and stuff, it's usually with just a couple minutes left. It's like we're racing full distance, then all of a sudden they're like, they come over the radio, hey, y'all got 10 laps left, y'all got 15 laps left. So the fact that they told them at the very beginning of the race that it's ending at 4:20 p.m. Eastern, I'll give the flowers to NASCAR on that one. but I'm still very mixed on it. But I do also understand why this move had to happen. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about a timed race in the Truck Series? All right, before we move on to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, we got to talk about the new best friends, the best friends forever, the BFFs of Kyle. Well, according to Carson Hocevar, they're BFFs. Kyle Busch and Carson Hocevar at the end of that race. And many of you know I'm a big Kyle Busch fan, so I pay attention to a lot of the things he says. And he's made it very clear over the last year or two that even though he really hasn't really had any personal incidents with Hocevar that I could really remember, he really doesn't like Hocevar. I think he's made it very clear that he does not like Hocevar in any sort of way. He doesn't like his personality. He doesn't like the way he races. But it worked out because Hocevar pushed him to the win and even celebrated with him on the front straightaway, came down into victory lane and shook his hand. Just a very, I would have never guessed those two working together and being as friendly as they were with one another. And then Kyle Busch getting back to victory lane for the first time in the 3 national series since last year at Atlanta. This is 3 straight times that he's won at ECHOPARK Speedway in the Craftsman Truck Series. So it's cool to see him back in victory lane, even though I'd much rather have it be a Cup Series race. But I just find it really interesting that these two, out of everybody in the field, these two were the ones working together, and Hocevar pushed Rowdy to a victory. Tyler, you're the one wearing the Chili's hat. How did you feel about this race to the finish with Hocevar and Rowdy?
Man, you can almost see it coming. Those boys are two peas in a pod. They just don't know how to fit in the pod.
Yeah,
Like they are one of the same, and it's
they are.
super cool to see. I have been on the Carson hype train since last year, and I love that guy. There's something about him, man. He's got the I don't give a shit attitude, and except for when it matters, like right in that moment, right now I'm gonna give a shit because it matters. I'm gonna do this for my team because it matters. But everything else, get the hell out of the way. Love that guy. Him and Kyle Busch are the same people, and that I think Kyle Busch is learning that, and I think he's starting to enjoy it. We'll see how long he enjoys it, but right now he enjoys it.
Yeah, I said it on, I think, Car on the Holler, my post-race show, that Hocevar reminds me of a young Rowdy. He reminds me so much of a young Kyle Busch. He has a very similar attitude, maybe not the same personality. I think they differ when it comes to the personality, but they both have the attitude. They both have the same way they race. They both have that thing where it's like, they have the mindset, if you ain't first, you're last. Like, that's the mindset that these two have. And I think they're a lot more alike than what Kyle Busch would like to believe. They're so similar. It's ridiculous. And I grew up loving Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch has been my favorite driver since elementary school. So I've paid attention to the guy. And Hocevar, there hasn't been a driver that's came through the ranks that reminds me more of a young Rowdy than Carson Hocevar. But Cory, how did you feel about the end of this race with Rowdy and Hocevar becoming best friends forever?
It was awesome. I'm a fan of Spire, and I'm a fan of Kyle Busch. I think we all wanted to see Kyle Busch get a win. So I was rooting for him. He was my pick, too, so that worked out. And then I think we all like Hocevar, too. So it turned out to be a perfect finish. And then seeing Hocevar and Kyle Busch work together was awesome. I think Hocevar kind of tattled on himself after the race, saying, well, my car wasn't good enough to actually win the race, so I had to push Kyle. And I thought that was funny because he's just like no filter. He could have sucked it. Oh, I was pushing my teammate to the win. That it's the team over me. He's like, no, my car wasn't good enough. But yeah, no, it was awesome. It was great. And then what Hocevar did afterwards, like taking it to Instagram and saying, "Oh, we're best friends now," and
That was
having
awesome.
Kyle Busch actually respond to it, like
Not so
that is
fast.
what NASCAR needs. Like Hocevar's personality right now, I know some drivers don't agree with it, but what else does the sport have? Like he is the only one right now that is doing anything different. Maybe Noah Gragson too, but like Carson is what fans are wanting to see. It's something that's showing life and personality. Right now, we don't have that other than him, and I'm absolutely loving it. And honestly, NASCAR loves it. So I hope the drivers embrace it, and I hope Carson keeps doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I would agree. I like the way Carson races personally. It's very entertaining. I love his personality. I like how much he does for the sport. He's always on Twitch. He's always interacting with these different social media people. He brought Speed to Daytona. He was hanging out with Agent the other night. So he's hanging out with a lot of these young streamers that a lot of younger people are big fans of. And that's why Carson Hocevar's fan base, most of his fan base is below 18. Like he's bringing in a lot of these younger fans into the sport, and that's impressive. And I think Hocevar just needs to keep on doing what he's doing. For the most part, I do think he needs to chill out a little bit, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And he'll get a bunch of wins, I think. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about the Truck Series race and the finish with Rowdy Busch and Carson Hocevar? How about Brexton running across the infield, too? That was cool. I loved seeing that and him jumping on his dad's back. I thought that was really cool. All right, let's move on to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and let's jump straight in to the end of this race, because the end of this whole race, I think this was the best race of the weekend, in my opinion, but the end of this race was nuts. It looked like Austin Hill was all of a sudden, Austin Hill was pretty quiet all race long. At least quiet for him when it comes to his super speedway. And then all of a sudden at the very end of the race, he's out front. They're coming off turn 2 on the last lap, and I'm like, yep, Austin Hill is going to win. Ross Chastain had a huge run, dove to the bottom. Austin Hill threw a block, and they both end up semi-wrecking. They both saved their cars, technically. Austin Hill made one of the best saves I've seen in a long time. It reminded me of Kyle Busch saving his number 18 M&M's car at the Budweiser shootout all those years ago when he got sideways on the apron. That's what that reminded me of, just sparks going everywhere. Hill was able to save it, and Sheldon Creed drove on to the victory. And we'll talk about Creed here in a second, but I first want to talk about Ross versus Hill. I looked at that wreck personally as a racing incident. One driver is trying to block, potentially even a bad block, but trying to win the race. And same thing with Chastain. Did he need to push through him? Not necessarily, but he's trying to win the race. So I look at it as a racing deal. I give it 50-50 blame. And both of them were like this. Both of them were pointing at the other person like, that's his fault. No, that's his fault. Neither of them took any accountability, it looked like, for the wreck. So I want to get the boys' opinions on this. Do they think it's a racing deal as well, or do they have blamed pointed at somebody? I guess we'll start with Cory on this one. Cory, how did you feel about the Ross Hill wreck?
It's definitely just a racing deal. Like, Ross Chastain backed it up on turn 2 to get a push from Creed to have a chance at passing Austin Hill. Austin Hill blocked a little too late. Ross Chastain took his run to the inside, and that's what happened. Ross Chastain was there. Austin Hill blocked a little too late, and it took both of them out. And I mean, they both saved it, but in reality, if it's anyone's fault, which it's just a racing incident. If it's anyone's fault, it's more Austin Hill's than Ross's. And then honestly, Austin Hill's lucky that it feels like everyone in the O'Reilly Autopot series is too afraid to do that with Austin Hill. They'd rather fight each other than, be afraid of getting blocked late by Austin Hill. And Ross Chastain's not going to break for going for a win.
Yeah, Ross
Absolutely
not.
not. So it kind of made me a little mad at Austin Hill afterwards when he was like, well, Ross is going to Ross. I'm like, dude, you're the last person that can say that.
Yeah.
Like, ask Eric Almirola. You're the last person that can say that, dude. But it's just a racing incident at the end of the day. Austin Hill blocked late and Ross took his run. That's it.
Yeah, that's how I kind of felt about it. It just seemed pretty even to me. I would say it's perfectly 50-50. I just can't really blame either. They're both going for the win. It's the last lap. Like, what do you expect? I kind of felt very similar about the Riley Herbst, Brad K wreck and the Daytona 500. It's like, this guy's trying to win the 500. Like, do you want him to not try to win? Like, he's trying to win. It's a big deal to win a race, any race, even if you're not competing for points. Like Ross, he's one of those drivers that I feel like needs to race in these lower series to gain confidence. He's one of those drivers, and he needs to run in these lower races to get momentum, and that's the way Ross is. Ross is going to go out there and try to win every race he can. He's going to go try to win the go-kart race over at the Trackhouse Motorplex. He's going to try to win every race he's in. That's just the way he is. He's another driver very similar to Hocevar and Rowdy, whereas if you ain't first, you're last. And that's Ross's attitude. And let's send it over to the Ross Chastain superfan of Tyler. Tyler, how did we feel about that wreck at the end of the race with Hill and Chastain?
That was 100% a racing incident, but it was all Austin Hill's fault. Dude left no room. He went diving down, just hoping for that block, and was like, whatever happens, happens. Number 6, I guess, maybe not. But that's fine. That's all good. It's racing incident. Like, dude, like you guys said, everybody's going for a win, but it was his fault. That's fine. Dude had one of the greatest saves I think I've ever seen in the O'Reilly series. Like, holy shit. There's no other way to say that. That man was completely sideways on the apron and then rejoined traffic at like quarter speed and somehow was at speed with them in a matter of seconds. So dude gets all his credit for that, but it was 100% his fault. He dive bombed down there hoping that the window would close, and it was entirely too late. Entirely too late. Am I happy it happened? Absolutely. Last thing I wanted to see was an Austin Hill win, and so we all got Mr. Ross up there. It takes a mountain to stop a hill, right?
Oh, damn, that's crazy.
Those mountains
That's a bar.
Those mountains on the front of those cores are now blue.
Coors. Yeah, you gotta throw the Coors in there. That was a bar right there. You gotta it takes a mountain to stop a hill. That's a bar right there. My favorite part about your take right there is like you were like it was 100% a racing deal, but it was all Austin Hill's fault. that was great.
Facts.
You had me there. You had me there for a second. I'm like, wow, he's actually gonna say it was a racing deal. He had me. He had me there. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about the Ross Chastain, Austin Hill wreck? Do you give it 50-50 like me? Do you give it almost 50-50, just slightly more blame to Hill like Cory? Or are you like Tyler and you're like, fuck Austin Hill, it's his fault. Why do you wreck everybody? Why do you do that? So let me know your thoughts in the comments. All right, let's get down to our winner. As you can tell by the way me and Cory are dressed, we're big fans of Sheldon. Let me grab this diecast here. Got my autographed championship diecast of Sheldon Creed right here. I'm so happy that this guy won. What a freaking moment. 15 runner-up finishes. Finally goes to victory lane. Hopefully this unlocks him. I think he's going to go out there and get more wins this season. He's going to race with the hot hand. He has confidence now. He's a pretty decent road racer. He's definitely not my pick to win at COTA because you have both Shane Van Gisbergen and Connor Zilisch in the O'Reilly Series field this weekend, but I do expect him to be pretty competitive for a top 5, top 10. But it's awesome, man. This was such a awesome moment. I was jumping up and down in my kitchen when Sheldon Creed took the lead and he made it to the checkered flag. I was so hyped, so freaking hyped. He finally got the job done. When you put yourself in that position as many times as he has, eventually something is going to fall your way. And what fell his way was that Chastain Hill incident, because if that incident doesn't happen, Sheldon Creed probably doesn't win this race. And Sheldon Creed finally gets to victory lane. A great celebration. I loved seeing Austin Hill come down to victory lane after everything that happened with him in the race. Of course, the history between him and Sheldon. They had beef as teammates, but anybody that's followed Sheldon Creed knows that him and Austin Hill are actually great friends. Those two are probably the best friends in the garage, which is kind of funny. In the O'Reilly Auto Parts series, not a lot of people know that. And to have Austin Hill go down to victory lane, dump some beers on his head, shake his hand after Austin Hill spun from the race lead, I thought that was very mature and very cool from Austin Hill's part. He even made a Instagram post congratulating Sheldon Creed, so I'll have to give some flowers to Austin Hill on that. But just Sheldon's interview, him winning, him drinking a bunch of Coors, like I was watching his story, his wife Cammie's story, and all their videos. It was really cool to see Sheldon win. I've never personally been so happy about this isn't my, let me make it clear, this isn't my favorite moment in NASCAR history. It's not, but it is the happiest I've ever been for a driver in a moment in NASCAR history. I'll send it to Cory on this one because Cory is also a big supporter of Sheldon. Cory, what was going through your mind, I would say, when Sheldon Creed finally crossed the finish line to get that win?
Man, it's just long overdue. Like, you and me have met him a couple times, talked to him a couple times. He's handed me a diecast. I have a signed championship diecast like you do at my desk. And it's just something we've been waiting for so long. So many times where he has it and the caution comes out and then he loses it in an overtime. And there's so many heartbreaking moments. And you know, you and me both know from just listening to him talk in conversation that he judges himself the most.
He does.
He is more self-accountable than probably most drivers. And you saw it in the interview. He criticized, he's like, it's not how you draw it up. You know what I mean? And like, just seeing him get that moment was so awesome. And I was sitting there listening to his in-car audio, and I heard three wide, the 3 car lengths behind you, and you just start hearing him screaming. And my TV's like 2 minutes behind. So I'm like, I start screaming like, let's go. And my dad's downstairs like, Austin Hill's leading. Why is he screaming? And it's so funny because I was like, he just related back to me. I'm like, I don't know why. But seeing Sheldon get that moment is so awesome. Like, it's just hard to describe. That's probably the happiest moment I've ever had watching a NASCAR race because you know how long we've waited to see him get that win. So it was a beautiful moment seeing Sam Mayer and the people celebrate with him, like going in that victory lap, and then Sam Mayer destroy his car, and Austin Hill see him in victory lane, and I know everything was great. I couldn't be happier. That was the best moment of the weekend. I told you on Sunday, I don't care who wins. This weekend's awesome. Like, I'm just so happy for Sheldon. That was a great day.
Yeah, it was a fantastic day, and I really liked the celebration. Sheldon was very hyped. I even liked the fact that even though he was so excited and so just over the top excited at the end of this thing, he took the time to thank Joe Gibbs Racing. He took the time to thank Richard Childress Racing for the time that they gave him in that car, and that really shows the type of man that Sheldon Creed is. He's a great
100%.
person. He's a great person. That was a great moment. I do have to also talk very quickly about Sam Mayer. Sam Mayer and his celebration when he heard over the radio, race is over. Sheldon Creed won, and he's like, "Let's go!" Like he was hyped, like he won the race. He went up on the front straightaway and congratulated Sheldon. He turned left down pit road and destroyed his car. He destroyed his car driving through the grass, but that really shows how great of a teammate and great of a friend that Sam Mayer is. I thought that was very cool as well. But I'm going to send it over to Tyler, who's, I'd say he's a slight supporter of Sheldon, maybe not as big as me or Cory, but I want to get his opinion on how he felt about the end of this race and Sheldon Creed finally winning. Tyler?
Can't say I've been supporting him like you guys. Absolutely not. I mean, I'm definitely a Justin Allgaier fan, 100%. That's my guy on Saturdays. It's hard for me to root for anybody else. But man, every second place I have watched that guy get has hurt. I mean, it's not somebody that gets in second place and you're like, yeah, he's in second place again. Like, no. Like every time you could see it on his face how badly he wanted that win and needed that win. I'm hopeful for him, man. I'm hopeful this win builds that confidence that guy definitely needed. Like 100%, he needed to know that he was that guy and he can do this. And that win was that win, man. That wasn't a like back into that win, nothing. He had to make his decisions and hopefully those decisions worked out for him and they did. Dude killed it. He's been killing it for a long time. It sucks to see as many second place finishes as we have out of him, and I hope this isn't just makes his career just take off. The guy deserves it. He's got a great family in the racing. You hear nothing but good things about him. Absolutely rooting for him from here.
Yeah, it's hard not to root for the guy. He puts everything he has into racing, whether it's mental or his actual finances itself. So he reminds me a lot of an old racer in that respect. And I'm hoping that a lot of people, he's already one of the more popular drivers for fans when it comes to the O'Reilly series. But maybe now that he's won a race and he's showed his personality a little bit I think he showed his personality a little bit more during that interview than what he usually would, obviously being as excited as he was. So hopefully more fans and more sponsors potentially get on board. I did see that Ollie's signed on for more races after the win. I don't know what exactly it is, but Ollie's signed on for some more races to sponsor the 00. So that's good on Ollie's for doing that. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Sheldon Creed finally getting his first career win in the O'Reilly Auto Parts series. Yeah, the last time Sheldon won, it was winning that championship at Phoenix during COVID. That was the last time he won a race. Period. So that's really cool. All right, before we move on from the O'Reilly Auto Parts series race, we got to talk about the booth. The CW booth, in my opinion, is potentially the best booth in all of NASCAR right now. I think Amazon does the best coverage, but I think there is also an argument booth versus booth, Prime versus CW. But I might have to give the edge to CW when it comes to the booth itself, because Adam Alexander, he has stepped up mightily. He wasn't the best commentator when he first became a commentator a couple years ago with Fox, and the Xfinity series at the time wasn't necessarily the strongest commentator at that point. He's improved so freaking much. He's learned a lot more about the sport. He's a lot better at the play-by-play than he once was. And then Jamie Mack and Parker Kligerman. I've talked a bunch about Jamie Mack. I think Jamie Mack is a genius. I think he's a funnier and younger version of Larry McReynolds. When Larry McReynolds was in the booth for Fox, he reminds me a lot of Larry when Larry Mack was in the booth years ago. Reminds me a lot of that. I think Jamie Mack is very well-spoken and just super smart. And then Parker Kligerman, he's also very smart as well. And he just seems to really be able to have great chemistry with pretty much anybody. Parker Kligerman just overall just seems like a great guy, and that he has great chemistry with literally anybody he works with. He jumps around from NBC to CW, so he works for multiple companies. Same thing with Jamie Mack. He jumps around as well. But Parker Kligerman seems to have insane chemistry with pretty much anybody he works with. But at the top of the list of the most chemistry he has is with Jamie McMurray. Like, these two are ripping on each other half the race, but at the same time having it relate to the race. They're geeking each other out. I'm laughing watching them. And it was overall just entertaining. At the same time, it wasn't just slop. It wasn't just a bunch of jokes and nothing that had to do with the sport. The jokes would have to do something with the sport. They kept on topic with the race. I got no notes. I got no negative notes for CW this week. I think they did perfect. I think they're amazing in the booth. And I want to get the boys' thoughts on this. I guess I'll start with Tyler on this one. How did you feel about the CW booth?
Man, the CW booth is absolutely killing it. They're like the booth to hear right now. Right now, I'll be honest. Right now on Sundays, I mute the TV and I'm listening to PRN. So
Damn.
I don't know about you guys.
It's not a bad take.
I can't listen to it. Can't listen to it. So on Saturdays, man, I love it. Jamie's up there killing it. Jamie is he's absolutely everything we have hoped for in the booth.
Yeah, I love.
I don't know.
Keep going.
I'm happy with everything they're doing. There's nothing up there that I would change. Like, their chemistry is perfect. They run off each other perfectly. That was the most exciting announcement of a win we've seen in years. So I don't know. I love it.
Yeah, that's one thing I really liked about the CW booth too, is Jamie Mack and Parker Kligerman can rip back and forth and make jokes and stuff, but they also know when to shut the hell up and let Adam Alexander make a call. And Adam Alexander called the shit out of that last lap. That's one of the best calls I have heard on the last lap of a race in a long time. And it was an O'Reilly Series race on the CW at Atlanta. This wasn't the Daytona 500. By the way, that Daytona 500 last lap call, Mike Joy actually did a pretty decent job. I was more thinking about the Truck Series call in my head. I think Mike Joy actually did a decent job doing that. But I would agree when it compares to Sunday with Fox. I think Harvick brings a lot to it. I think he's gotten a lot better. I think he's really smart and has brought a lot to it. Clint Bowyer, I think there's moments where I really enjoy listening to Clint because Clint's hilarious. Clint is always going to be hilarious, but sometimes Clint Bowyer gets a little bit too much off topic. He kind of distracts the viewers. He kind of talks when he's not supposed to talk sometimes. And Mike Joy, it's hit and miss. Mike Joy sometimes has his fastball. Sometimes he's just throwing the ball into the dirt. It just really depends. He's definitely not as good as he once was, but he still has his moments here and there. Cory, how did you feel about the CW booth and their performance so far through 2 races?
I think we need to start it off by saying comparing Saturday and Sunday, a lot has to do with the vehicle, the car. And
That's true.
Sunday's car is just not as entertaining as Saturday's car. And we can nitpick the booth. I think a lot of what comes down to the CW being so good is that the chemistry is there and the excitement is there. You can hear the excitement in Jamie Mack's voice. You can hear the excitement in Adam Alexander's voice, and you can hear the excitement especially in Parker Kligerman's voice. And I think that's what gets you entertained. When you're listening to the broadcast and they sound like they're falling asleep, or they sound like they don't know what's going on, or they don't sound like, where's this camera pointing at right now? Like, it makes you get confused and lose interest versus like the CW and on that Saturday race was entertaining the entire time. Like, in that last lap, Adam Alexander crushed it, and Parker Kligerman crushed it. Jamie Mack crushed it. I remember when they wrecked, when Austin Hill and Ross Chastain hit each other, they all were like, "Oh no!" They were excited. They didn't know what was going to happen. And I don't know if you heard it. You heard Parker Kligerman going, "Creed's in the lead!" Like, they're like excited because they see what's happening. And then Adam Alexander just nailed the rest of that lap, and it was the cherry on top of a great race. A great broadcast booth adds so much to the race that most people don't understand.
Yeah, it really does, and that's one thing I always commend. And Tyler, cover your ears here because I'm going to give credit to Formula One here. That's one thing I'll give a lot of credit to Formula One for. Is the racing as entertaining as NASCAR? In my opinion, no, it's not even close. It's not even a debate. NASCAR is much more entertaining than Formula One. But if I was blind or wasn't watching the race and I was just listening to the commentators, I would think there's more going on in the Formula One race than the NASCAR race in usual scenarios. They have great commentators over there. Same thing with the IndyCar series. I could say the same thing about the IndyCar series. They make it more entertaining. And I understand why Tyler listens to PRN, or if you listen to MRN, or you listen to any of these radio stations that do the race, because they're a lot more descriptive. They're a lot more excited usually. And the CW just did a great job. I think CW just did a phenomenal job. Fox, when it comes to both the Cup Series and the Truck Series, I think they have made a step up as an overall production this year. But when it comes to the booth itself, I haven't seen much improvement. I think Mike Joy has started this year a little bit better than he did last year. Bowyer is about the same. And I think Harvick's getting better all the time. I really do think Harvick is getting better all the time, and he's almost being held back by that booth he's in. And I don't need to talk about the Truck Series booth because that booth is completely awful and abysmal, in my opinion. No offense, Jamie Little. Jamie Little was perfect on pit lane after the race, by the way. Michael Jordan loves her. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about the CW booth so far to start the 2026 season? Another little thing that when it comes to CW booth that I like, and I don't know if y'all like it when it comes to the CW, not the booth, but what CW does with coverage. They do something very similar to Prime, where they have the pre-race and they have all the fans surrounding them. I always think that's pretty cool. I think all the broadcasts should do that. Let's move on to the Cup Series race, where we're going to have a good amount of Hocevar talk here. We'll start with Hocevar, well, just Hocevar in general, actually. I was going to say Hocevar and Bell, but we'll talk about that afterwards. I really want to talk about how Hocevar was just so entertaining in this race. I was keeping one eye on the race as a whole and then one eye on Carson Hocevar all race long. He was making all these crazy moves. Anytime he had a big run, he would take it and slingshot and shake and bake. Anytime he had the opportunity, he was just so entertaining. He's the most entertaining driver in NASCAR by far right now, whether it's on or off of the track. I see why he's getting so many fans, and he was just so entertaining at Atlanta. He was going to make something happen, Captain. He was going to make something happen all race long, and he tried to make something happen a couple times at the end of the race. Didn't quite work out in his favor, and we will talk about that. But first, I want to talk about just how we feel about Hocevar, the driver, and how his performance was. And I guess I'll start with the Chili's guy himself, Tyler. Tyler, how did we feel about the way Hocevar was racing that race as a whole?
And the can's unlocked. Like, the dude is unleashed. It's out. It's out. Like, he now knows that it doesn't matter what he does on that track, win or lose, people want to see that. People are there to see exactly what he is doing. Whether we like it or not, whether the drivers like it or not, is doing what is making the ratings go up, and that is racing the hell out of those boys, whether they like it or not, every moment they're on that racetrack. He's not waiting till the last lap like everybody else, doesn't care. Lap 2, let's go. We're racing on a racetrack, let's race the whole damn thing. So, I don't know, man's killing it. He's doing what the people want, and I can't blame him for it.
Yeah, I can't blame him for it either. He's so ridiculously entertaining. He's so entertaining. I love watching him on and off the racetrack. He's bringing so many new fans into the sport. And I've said it before, he's a sponsorship's wet dream, to be honest. He does so much for his sponsors, for Chili's and all these different sponsors, whether it's at the racetrack, in interviews, his social media presence is insane. He's the future, man. He's the future of this sport. Cory, how did we feel about Hocevar just as a whole, and how do we feel about him in his Atlanta performance?
Hard not to say exactly what you guys already said, because off the track he's doing so much to help the sport, like getting with streamers and doing his live streams, and buying a Chili's in his hometown,
I forgot
and
about that, yeah.
just buying cars that look like the old Dale Earnhardt car, like just going above and beyond to be the NASCAR fan offside the track and then be a NASCAR driver on the track. Like, he's doing what fans want to see. He's creating so much more content that NASCAR can advertise, and it's just fun. Like, not even talking about on the track, he's just fun to root for and see what he's up to. And then on the track, he brings that same personality to the racetrack. Where I'm not gonna jump and say, I mean, he has a chance at speedway tracks in Atlanta, but I'd like to see how he does at COTA and how he does at Phoenix and Vegas to get to to see where the improvement went as a driver. But man, like, it's hard not to be excited or entertained watching Carson Hocevar. It's just fun.
Yeah, it's fun to watch the
I want to
guy.
piggyback
What's up?
I want to piggyback off of something Cory just said real quick.
Yeah.
And that's like you said, right? He's doing everything for the fans, but that's because he is a fan. That guy
Yes.
is a fan of NASCAR and wants the best because he is a fan himself. And all the best at everything they've ever done is because they're a fan at their own sport. Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, the list goes on. The best ones were the ones that were the biggest fans of their own sports. So this guy's potential is the sky because of how much he loves racing alone. Like, him being a fan is what's going to be the difference.
Yeah, one thing that's a good point, Tyler, as well. One thing I've noticed about Hocevar that I think is really cool, he's not shy to wear like another driver's gear because he's like a fan of that guy. Like, I see him constantly wearing like Dale Jr. gear or like Junior Motorsports stuff. He obviously grew up a pretty big Dale Jr. fan, an Earnhardt fan in general. That's why he's collecting all these cars. Sometimes he just pulls up in the stands and hangs out in the stands and watches the race from the grandstands, like with the fans. I don't understand why. I mean, I guess I understand why he's not more popular and why some people really hate him or dislike him. But if you know the guy, you should like the guy. You really should, because he's one of us. He's a big fan. He's pretty much like if one of us won a sweepstakes and got thrown into a cup car. That's like that would be us. Like if I was in a cup car and won a sweepstakes and got into a cup car or something like that, I would be doing the same thing he's doing, and it's really cool to see. I really like the guy. I think he's awesome. But before we move on to Bell versus Hocevar, I do want to quickly ask the boys because there's been a discussion about what is Carson Hocevar's nickname. The media has been trying their best over the last 7 or 8 months to give him the nickname Hurricane. I feel like that hasn't really stuck. The only people that I hear calling him Hurricane are usually people that are working with Fox. I don't really hear anybody else saying that. They're really trying to push the Hurricane. I heard Jordan Bianchi. It was either Jordan Bianchi or Jeff Gluck the other night on the Teardown call him the Show. I think it was Gluck that said it. Said his nickname should be the Show. I like that nickname. And then another one that's been popping up, and it hasn't really even been a nickname for him, but if you've seen the Chili's car that he's racing this weekend, a couple people on Reddit, and it started getting bigger and bigger, nicknamed his car the Intimidente. And I would love that personally. I think that's the pick, the Intimidente. I would rank it Intimidente should be his nickname. The second would be the Show, and I don't like the Hurricane. I think the Hurricane is very forced, and I just don't think it doesn't really flow off the tongue really well. Carson, the Hurricane Hocevar, it just doesn't really flow for me. But I guess we'll start with Tyler on this one. What out of those three, what would be your pick for Carson Hocevar's nickname?
I mean, personally, I'm okay with the Intimidante. I'm perfectly okay with that because he has just as much heart for NASCAR as much as Dale did. Another guy that absolutely loved our sport inside and out, so and would be doing all these same things Carson's doing. So I can respect that 100%. But you definitely have everybody that's gonna throw their little fits about that. He's definitely gonna have that. But I don't think he cares. That's the thing. He wouldn't care. He's the perfect person you can put that nickname on, and he just wouldn't give a shit. He'd take it proudly and go about it. But he's also a show. I hate the Hurricane thing.
I don't like
That's
the Hurricane.
stupid. It feels disrespectful.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Hurricane. I think it's a silly nickname. I'm not a big fan of that. I was all on board with the Show up until earlier today. I saw Intimidente, and I'm like, that's the one. That's the name. But Cory, out of those three, which one do you prefer? Intimidente, the Show, or the Hurricane?
Um, I I kind of agree with what Tyler said. I'd like Intimidente. The only two issues that one Tyler already brought up is that it's gonna spark a little bit of outrage because you can't be quoted in the same sentence as the Intimidator. And then the only other gripe, which isn't a current issue, is that that name goes
With Chili's.
if Chili's ever leaves the sport. Like, so it's not a name that's going to last forever. I personally like, and this one I just made up. I don't care if people don't like it,
We
but
have
the
a fourth
Hitman
entry.
Hocevar,
Hitman
I like
Hocevar.
I like Hitman Hocevar better than the other ones and better than Hurricane because say he keeps wrecking people or hitting people, he's still the Hitman. He's hitting people. Or when he finally wins the race, it's he's a hitman. He got his job done. He did, he killed it, right? But like, I know I hate the Hurricane as well. That's dumb. Second, he starts winning races and losing the oh he's gonna wreck you persona. Like that nickname's just null and void. It seems very forced. It's not. I don't know. I don't like it.
I just had a little bit of a brain blast when you said that Hitman thing. But right before I get to my brain blast on that, the one argument I would make when it comes to you can't mention Hocevar and the Intimidator in the same sentence, he's going to get a lot of hate for that. Well, he already gets a lot of hate, so I don't think that's going to change much. I think he's going to probably get around the same amount of hate and dislike that he gets from a lot of these people. And you are right. If Chili's leaves, so does the nickname. But with how much he's doing for Chili's, he owns a Chili's at this point. Chili's just had like their biggest year ever, I think. And I think Hocevar is probably a big part of that. So I'd be very surprised to see Chili's leave anytime soon. But let me get to my brain blast. You said Hitman Hocevar. The video game, I think, is called Hitman 47, What if we call him Hitman 77? I like that. Well, how do we feel about that, Tyler? How do we feel about Hitman 77 or Hitman Hocevar? How do you feel about either of those actually?
I don't like the Hitman thing either, because it's another just
Damn,
runoff of him
Daniel.
wrecking people. I mean,
That's what he
I
does.
don't know. Yeah, but whatever.
Sting.
Who cares? So did Dale.
That's why he's
And
intimidating.
Intimidante.
Intimidating.
A
For
hitman,
life.
a hit, a
Who
hitman's, a
cares if
hitman's also an
Chili
assassin. A hitman's
Who
also an
cares if
assassin.
Chili's leaves? If Chili's leaves, it doesn't matter. He now owns Presidente. That is his
He does
logo,
own a
his
Chili's. That's
owner.
true.
So fuck it.
Yeah.
If they leave, they can leave. I don't give a shit.
All right, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. What is your opinion on Carson Hocevar on and off the track? And what do you think his new nickname should be? Should it continue to be the Hurricane, like how media is trying to force? Should it be the Show, like Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi suggested? Should it be the Intimidante, like a lot of social accounts have been kind of suggesting? Or would you go with one of either mine or Cory's suggestion, where it's Hitman Hocevar or Hitman 77 or something like that? Or maybe you have a different nickname that I haven't heard of before for Hocevar. Let me know in the comments. All right, let's get down to the end of this race. We have more Carson Hocevar talk, as we had a couple of incidents involving Hocevar at the end of this thing. And we'll start with Carson Hocevar versus Christopher Bell on that restart near the end. I think it was the first overtime or green-white checkered finish that we had. He stuck it in the middle. In my opinion, there wasn't enough room for his race car. I know he was going for the win, but in my opinion, I thought that was a little bit overly aggressive or even reckless making that move. And he took out Christopher Bell, who was a great car. Christopher Bell gave a really great interview, in my opinion. He's like, "Oh, I haven't seen it." So a very Christopher Bell sort of interview. Christopher Bell is very mature, and even during the week, if he looked at the replay and saw that Hocevar wrecked him, he's probably not going to do anything about it. He reminds me so much of Martin Truex Jr. when Martin Truex Jr. was racing, that he's, no matter what, he's probably not going to do anything. He's just going to continue to race you with respect. That's just the way Christopher Bell tends to race. But I want to get the boys' thoughts on this, how they feel about that wreck on the first overtime finish between Christopher Bell and Carson Hocevar. And Cory, how did you feel about that wreck with Hocevar and Bell?
I think it's kind of obvious. Hocevar fucked up. Like there wasn't a hole there. There was like 80% of a hole there. He
Yeah.
snuck it in and it wrecked Bell. But at the same time, I kind of hope, I don't want him to do that same move again, but I kind of hope he doesn't like get afraid of doing that move again, because we need that. And like if it sparks outrage and Bell gets pissed off, or if he does it to the wrong person and they get pissed off, then we need to see that happen. Like he needs to grow. If he needs to get in a fight, he needs to get in a fight. Like, I don't know. That's my opinion on it. He made a mistake. Don't be afraid to do it again. And let a driver, if that Christopher Bell got pissed off, like say if that was on who has a hot head right now. If that was Kyle Busch probably would have went and talked to him, and they wouldn't have been best friends anymore. You know what I
Aw.
mean? Like it would have been a week,
I made
one day
friendship
thing.
bracelets.
But yeah, I know. That's my whole thought process on it. He made a mistake, but he shouldn't be afraid to do it again until someone, I don't know, speaks their
Checks
mind.
him. Somebody checks him.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody could reach him to get a punch in, to be fair, Cory. I don't know if he's too
That's
tall.
what Ryan Blaney said. Ryan
Oh,
Blaney
did he?
said they need a trampoline.
Oh, I must have missed that. I did watch Door Bumper Clear, but I must have missed him saying that. That's hilarious. Yeah, he's a tall
Yep.
motherfucker. I don't know if anybody could reach. I don't know if anybody could have that.
He said,
reach.
I think Ryan Blaney said that he's been trying. He went to speak to someone one time, and he's like, when you have to look up to somebody, it's like you kind of lose all authority in the conversation. He's like, Dad, what did I tell you? Like, you know what I mean? It was funny.
That's hilarious. I love Blaney. I did hear him talking about his llama and his goats, since that was. I love Blaney, man. Blaney's freaking awesome. But Tyler, I'm very curious on your opinion on this. How did you feel about the Hocevar Bell wreck on an overtime? Who really gets more of the blame on this one?
Give it to Bell. Carson's fine.
the detective. I've detected that was a lie. Man's just trying to hold a straight
for
face.
real though. For real though. I mean, I don't know. It's racing.
He's going for the win. He's going for the win.
It's
I get it.
He's going for the win. I mean, at least we're getting to that point with him, right? Where they're not, he's not wrecking them all on lap 2. It's at least the last 2 laps. I mean, whatever. I am enjoying it. Personally, you got the wrong guy if you want me to tell him to stop, because I am enjoying it. I mean, I would do it NASCAR on the Xbox style. Wreck them all. Just go backwards on the track.
Do what you gotta do.
Do what
Start
you gotta
poking
do.
holes in tires. Do what you gotta do. Just do something. That's hilarious. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about the Christopher Bell, Carson Hocevar wreck? Do you feel like me and Cory where that was Hocevar's fault? Or are you like Tyler where you're like, Hocevar does no wrong. He's the king. He's the king. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. All right. Let's move on to Hocevar versus Bubba now. This one wasn't really a wreck, but we had 2 moments. I wouldn't say incidents. 2 moments between Hocevar and Bubba Wallace. The first one was, and I'll ask the boys about the first one first, was that Carson Hocevar found a gap. Bubba Wallace tried to move up high to block Carson Hocevar, and in my opinion, he just went way too far to the right and gave exactly 1 car length. Nothing. It wasn't 1.1. It wasn't 0.9. It was exactly 1 car length. And Hocevar is pretty much sliding on Reddick's door and sliding on Bubba Wallace's door, coming through the middle. I personally thought in particular situation that Bubba Wallace just flat out shot himself in the foot. I think he made a huge error right there. Just went too far to the right. And I've heard all the conversation and all the talks, and I do agree. I think probably what the plan was from Bubba Wallace's standpoint, I heard Freddie Kraft talk about it a little bit as well, from their standpoint, was to jump up high, slow down the run from Carson Hocevar, and then get that push from Carson Hocevar, and then dive back down in front of Reddick. And if Bubba was able to do it correct, maybe that was able to happen. But even if, this is Carson Hocevar we're talking about, even if he was able to throw a proper block on Hocevar, I think there's a good chance Hocevar is wrecking the field there. I think that's a very high possibility that Hocevar just runs into the back of him and goes like, good luck everybody else, just takes him out. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all. That's one of the reasons why we like Hocevar. He's very entertaining. But I want to get the boys' thoughts on this. Do y'all feel similar on Bubba shooting himself in the foot? I guess I'll start with Cory. How did you feel about that backstretch block by Bubba?
I mean, that's 100% why I said Hocevar can't stop going for those moves, right? Like he did it a little too early on Christopher Bell's. There wasn't a gap there, but with Bubba, it worked out. Like that's what he wanted to do. I don't think he had a chance of really winning that race, but he put himself in a position to maybe get one.
Yeah.
And that's why he needs to keep doing it, right? Like Bubba did shoot himself in the foot, and that was that. Like Hocevar needs to keep being aggressive. He just needs to make sure he's picking the right battles.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Hocevar needs to continue to be aggressive. I did hear Blaney, I think, talk about it. There's a big difference between being overly aggressive and reckless, and at times Hocevar can be reckless. Sometimes he's aggressive, and being aggressive is good. I think being aggressive with this generation of car, especially with this generation of car, if you're not an aggressive race car driver, you're probably not winning. And you can see who's winning the races. Who are the drivers that are usually winning the races over the last couple of years? They tend to be aggressive racers, like Denny Hamlin, like Kyle Larson. Ross Chastain has gotten some wins. Those guys are very aggressive. So I think you need to do that to win in this generation of car especially. But I think you've always had to at least have a touch of aggression. And he walks that fine line. He definitely walks that fine line. But Tyler, how did you feel about Bubba Wallace making that block on the back straightaway that was very, very unsuccessful?
I think it would have been fine if Bubba didn't have literally anybody else
Literally
behind
anybody.
him. And not because And not because Carson's a wrecking ball, in my opinion, but because anybody else would have been like, la-di-da, we're going down the field, everything's fine, we're all driving in a circle. And no, Carson's not here for that. He's ready to drive at every moment in time. And they keep forgetting about that. They think they can throw these wild blocks and all this stupid shit. And just like Hill and everybody else, when you have an aggressive driver next to you, you think you can do whatever you want, but guess what? You can't. Somebody's gonna be there. Somebody's actually gonna be racing you, and it's gonna hurt. So I don't know. The dude's racing.
Yep. Rubbin's racing, right? Rubbin's racing. Yeah.
Racing.
Yeah, I 100% agree with your point, Tyler. I think literally anybody, if literally anybody is behind Bubba when he makes that block, they're like, that might be enough room for a car, but I might wreck myself or might wreck the whole entire field. I'm just not going to do the move. I don't need the spot. Carson Hocevar, it seems like when Carson Hocevar is racing, the only way he's able to breathe is if he's leading the race. It seems like he just can't breathe until he's leading the race. Like it's like a life or death situation for him. That's one of the things I love about him. That's what Rowdy's kind of missing nowadays is that. That's what young Rowdy used to have, and that's one of the reasons why I really like Hocevar. And yeah, I remember seeing it and having a very audible reaction, like holy shit, Hocevar through the middle. Like I had some sort of reaction like that. It was a crazy move, but it comes to be expected when it comes to Hocevar at this point. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about Bubba Wallace making that block on the back straightaway? That was very unsuccessful. And how do you feel about Hocevar saying gap, car, and going right in the middle there? All right, before we get to our winner, and I'm very excited to talk about our winner, we have to talk about the second part of Hocevar versus Bubba. And this one I feel a little bit differently. Bubba Wallace got sent way back because of that bad block, but then he got back to the front straightaway and had a huge run. I don't know if this run would have propelled him to the lead, but it at least would have gave him some sort of chance to get a 1-2 finish for 23-11 racing. So I don't know if he would have won the race, but it would have potentially given him the opportunity. And it looked like to me that Hocevar just flat out put him in the wall. I don't know if it was a late block or whatever. And I think some people might look at this very similar to the Riley Herbst, Brad K. I think the big difference to this, because I was overall okay with the Herbst, Brad K. The reason I was overall okay with it, because the finish line's right there. Finish line, they can see the checkered flag waving in the air. Like, I understood Herbst making that move a lot more, but I feel like Hocevar making that late block and putting them both in the wall didn't just hurt Bubba, but it also hurt Hocevar and his opportunity to potentially get a good finish. I thought it was a very late block. I thought it was a bad move. And honestly, Bubba Wallace gave the most mature interview he's ever given. I think he's gotten a lot more mature and a lot better with his interviews. People that are hating on Bubba anymore, you should just, if you still hate on Bubba, there's another problem that we don't need to talk about, and you're probably on Facebook. But with this move that Bubba made and then Hocevar putting him in the wall, me personally, if I personally was Bubba Wallace in that scenario, I would have been like Kyle Busch at Vegas when he punched Joey Logano, when he walked down pit road and socked him in the face. If I was Bubba Wallace in that scenario, that's what I would have done personally. But very mature interview from Bubba. He was obviously very upset that came just short of winning again. 2 straight weeks where he arguably had the best car in the field and didn't win. And he didn't just not win, he had to watch his teammate win, which is very bittersweet. It's like, we have similar cars and I could have won, and the other side of that coin is my teammate won, and I can go celebrate in victory lane with Michael Jordan and stuff. So it's kind of bittersweet. So I bet it's really bittersweet to see your teammate win. And I want to get the boys' thoughts on this, on how they felt about that incident on the front straightaway between Bubba Wallace and Carson Hocevar. Cory, how did you feel about that late block, I would say, by Hocevar on the front straightaway? Do you feel kind of similar as I do? They're all going for the win, so I'm not too mad, like, after the fact. Like, if it was fresh in my mind and I was Bubba Wallace on pit road, yeah, I'm going to go sock him in the face. But a couple of days after the fact, I'm not as mad, been able to calm down and be like, he's going for the win. He's going for the win. It was a bad move. Fuck yeah, it was a horrible move. But he's going for the win. Cory, how did you feel about it?
Honestly, I don't have that much of an opinion on it. I think Hocevar did a racing move. Like, if Larson would have done the same move to Bubba, we wouldn't really be talking about it. If Byron would have done the same move to Bubba, we wouldn't have been really talking about it. It's just because it was Hocevar that he's under a microscope, and because of what he did to Bell, and because of the restart earlier. Like, he makes those, I don't know, questionable calls, but like, it's the last lap. I'm gonna block you too. Like, I don't care. Like, imagine if he would have got the run from Bubba and then took it all the way through turn two. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
agreed.
Like, I don't think that move means anything. I think Hocevar made the right decision. Was it kind of dirty? Sure, but like, that's the move Larson would make. That's
Yeah.
the move another aggressive driver would make. That's what I'm saying. He can't stop being aggressive, and that was an aggressive move that he needed to make. And if Bubba has a problem with it, he should say something, because those are the moves that pissed off Gordon back in the day. Those are the moves that, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's NASCAR. It's what makes the sport awesome. We need tempers. We need, gutsy moves. Like, I have no issue with that move at all.
No, I get where you're coming from with that perspective. I would like to make it clear on my perspective. I don't have any issues with Hocevar throwing a block, especially on the last lap. That's why I've been able to calm down a little bit. But the fact that Bubba was already like halfway up his door, and I don't think he intentionally put him in the wall. I don't think he was like, hey, I'm going to put Bubba Wallace in the wall. If I'm not winning, you're not winning. I don't think that was the mindset at all when Hocevar made that move. I agree a lot with what Steve Letarte said the other night, because he was talking about the Hurricane nickname and saying that he needs to chill out. He doesn't need to be as wild as a hurricane. He'll probably win more races if he was more like a tropical storm. Like, he was being funny, but it's kind of real at the same time. I think if Hocevar just woosaws the littlest, I'm not asking him to change too much. I'm asking him to just pick and choose when's the right time to be aggressive. And I agree. Maybe if Hocevar makes that block a second or two sooner, Hocevar might have won his first race. That's why I was saying he didn't just hurt Bubba; he hurt himself. So I don't know. Like I said, I feel a little bit different about it, I would say, and I'm very curious on what Tyler has to say about this. Tyler, how did you feel about that move on the front straightaway with Hocevar throwing a late block and getting Bubba Wallace into the wall?
Quote one of the three greatest drivers of all absolute time, Mr. Petty. The man reminds me of Dale Earnhardt and was doing exactly what he needed to do. Oh, so I don't know, man. I think he was doing what no different than anybody else out there that's an aggressive driver would do. He's out there trying to get his first win. I don't think the move matters. Again, like Cory said, I don't think the move matters. So what? He takes it into the run and it doesn't do anything anyway. And Pack comes up and gets him. So, like, I don't know. Personally, I don't think it mattered anyway in the long run of things. In the short runs of things, the man's doing what he needs to do.
No, I can get behind that. It's the last lap of the race. Man's going for the win, so I can get behind that. I just want I want Hocevar to have success, and for Hocevar to have success, he needs to pick and choose when to do these things. Like, one big knock I have on Hocevar, probably the only big knock I really have on Hocevar, is I just don't think he has very good racecraft. I don't think he has the best racing IQ. And for some like for example, like Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick was the king of racecraft, the king of racing IQ. That's why he was called the closer, because he would just pick and choose when to be aggressive, pick and choose when to make his moves. And I think if Hocevar can hone in a little bit of that, just a little bit, he's going to win a lot of races. He's going to win a lot of races. And then obviously I feel for Bubba a little bit as well, because Bubba's been so close to winning these past 2 weeks. I think he's getting a win very, very soon. I think he's going to win within the next couple of weeks. But nonetheless, give me your thoughts in the comments. Do you kind of agree with Cory or Tyler that this is just racing, man? That almost any driver is going to do that sort of situation? Or do you kind of feel like me, where it's like, hey, he's going for the win. It's the last lap. Got to be aggressive. But maybe you need to hone it in just a tad bit. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Okay, let's get down to the end of this race, as we had a Whelen modified car win a Cup Series race, and it wasn't driven by Ryan Preece for some reason. It was driven by Tyler Reddick driving that Pinnacle Toyota with no right front. I don't know how he had all that pace. Tyler, I don't know if it reminded you like it reminded me. It reminded me a lot of when Dale Jr. had no right front at Martinsville, and it all of a sudden made his tires cool down. It cooled down his brakes, and his car was better because he had the damage. And am I saying that Tyler Reddick's car was necessarily better because it had the damage? No. But the fact that he was able to compete and win that race with a damaged car was wild to me. I think was it Eric Jones that had a destroyed car in the Budweiser shootout and won it all those years ago? I think it was Eric Jones. It might have been Bell. I think it was Eric Jones that won the Budweiser shootout like 4 or 5 years ago, and he had a whole bunch of damage as well. So very interesting to see him win with the damaged car. But let's get past that, and he went back to back. Reddick goes back to back. Michael Jordan goes back to back. Denny Hamlin goes back to back. 2311 Racing goes back to back after almost being out of the sport completely. This is an awesome moment for our sport once again, going back to back. While y'all were talking earlier, I did see that the viewership popped up. Unfortunately, the viewership wasn't any higher this year than it was last year for the Atlanta race. The O'Reilly Series numbers did go up this week a little bit compared to last year. And compared to last year's Truck Series race, we almost had 100,000 more viewers this week, which is very cool for the Truck Series. But we're getting talked about a lot on social media, throughout pop culture. Maybe not as much as we were last week, but still more often. We're being talked about more often than what we usually would be talked about as a sport, which is fantastic. And Tyler Reddick to come out here and win 2 straight races after his very difficult year last year, both on and off the racetrack, is a fantastic, beautiful story. To have Michael Jordan get interviewed multiple times throughout the weekend, that is awesome. I've never seen him smile so hard. Like I don't even know if I've ever really seen him smile. Michael Jordan is he's business. He's all business, it seems like. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know Michael Jordan personally, but he seems all business to me. And he just seems like he's a kid in a candy store at these NASCAR tracks, especially when they're doing well. And that's awesome to see, not just to see Michael Jordan smile, but also just to see everybody reacting to Michael Jordan in our sport, I think is just fantastic. I want to get to Tyler first on this one. First of all, you had the bold take of Tyler Reddick not having a good year, missing the playoffs, the chase. I need to start calling it the chase. I keep on calling it the playoffs. The chase, and him not getting a lot of wins. So is there anything you have to say to Tyler Reddick? Plus, how did you overall feel about the way this season has started with back-to-back wins for Reddick in 2311 Racing?
By saying, if you thought NASCAR was rigged, this proves it. Because the last thing I wanted was to see 2311 come out and take the first 2 races of the year, let alone with their favorite driver. So the hot take on that is just as deep as it comes. When it comes to Reddick, and was I wrong? That guy is right now. He can't win this year. That Daytona has revived his career in a way I didn't even think was possible. That guy is on it. He's ready. And yeah, no, that car lost a fender and gained another gear. It was some crazy shit to see.
Yeah, it was definitely a crazy end to the race, and it's just a great moment for our sport to have this sort of promotion over social media and pop culture, like Michael Jordan winning back-to-back Cup Series races. Once again, just like last year, the Daytona 500 winner popped up on Monday Night Raw. Reddick was on Monday Night Raw last night. He did a burnout, did some donuts in the parking lot. And he had the most popular guy in WWE right now, probably, in CM Punk, sitting passenger. It's really cool for the sport right now. Everything that's going on, and all this is going on because Tyler Reddick won the Daytona 500, because Tyler Reddick won the Auto Trader 400, and he potentially could be the first driver in NASCAR history to start off the season by winning the first 3 races, which I see as a legitimate possibility. He finished top 5 in all of the races we've had at COTA so far, so it's a good chance that could happen. But Cory, how did you feel about the end of this race? How did you feel about Reddick going back to back?
I mean, as a whole, it's awesome. I mean, like you said, with everything that Reddick went through last year with his son, and you know, just not winning a race, it was probably a long off season for him too, especially with the court case and everything like that. So, starting off the year with 2 wins back to back, first time done since what, '09 and Matt Kenseth, like,
Yes.
and these 2 races are insanely hard to win. They're milestones. Like, I mean, I would maybe in Atlanta not as much as Daytona 500, but it's still 2 insanely hard races to win. And doing that with Michael Jordan as the owner, with Denny Hamlin as the owner, with Hamlin going through everything he went through in the offseason, like this, not piggybacking off, I am piggybacking off what I said last week, but it's just, it's so beautiful to see with how bad last year was for this team, and Reddick as a person, or Reddick and what he went through and what everything 23XI went through. It's just nice to see. It's good to see, and it's awesome to see Michael Jordan like get as much like TV time for NASCAR. Like, we need that. We need more eyes on the sport.
Yeah, he's getting a lot of love too. I love what I'm seeing. I love what I'm seeing right now with NASCAR. I've never been so happy to be a NASCAR fan. At least back until when I was a little kid, I haven't been this happy as to be a NASCAR fan since I was a little kid, because the way this season has started, it has me all hyped up. I love what's going on right now. The viewership might have not shown up 100% like I thought it would for Atlanta, but with how much we're being talked about, I would expect for us to get slightly back to where we were all those years ago. I don't think we'll ever get back to the way we were all those years ago, and that's partially because there's just so many different things to watch and do now. Satellite TV and cable TV just aren't king anymore. It's more about streaming now. So there's a lot of different things. I don't know if streaming numbers really count to that viewership. I'm not exactly sure, but it's just awesome. It's awesome to be a NASCAR fan right now. Got to be happy for Tyler Reddick. Got to be happy for Michael Jordan. Got to be happy for Denny Hamlin. And most of all, be happy for that race team in 23XI Racing, because there was a good chance we weren't going to see them race again. They even opened up, because they didn't know what the future of the team was. They even opened up Reddick's contract and gave Reddick the freedom to go to another team if he wanted to, and that didn't end up happening. Reddick ended up sticking around. Thank God for 23XI's sake. Thank God for NASCAR's sake, because it's just awesome. It's awesome to see. I'm very happy to be a NASCAR fan, and hopefully we can continue this going heading into COTA, where last year we had a barn burner of a race, probably the best road course race we've seen in years last year at COTA. So I would expect more of the same this weekend. But let me know your thoughts on the Atlanta weekend as a whole, the Cup Series race, the Auto Trader 400, and the finish we had with Tyler Reddick winning with the wheel and modified, pretty much winning that race, and what it does for our sport when it comes to pop culture, popularity in general. All right, now that we've talked about the news stories of the week, we've talked about the weekend rundown, going through the races. Now let's look ahead to the future at the weekend that may be. Let's go through quickly the schedule and the facts. Then the boys will give their thoughts on COTA, and we'll make our weekly picks. So let's start with this weekend's schedule for not just Circuit of the Americas, but also St. Petersburg. As on Friday at 4 p.m., we have Truck Series practice at St. Pete. On Fox Sports 2 at 5 p.m. we have Truck Series qualifying on Fox Sports 2. And I kind of want to get the boys' thoughts on this here in a moment. But when we go to these different racetracks, for some reason, I don't know if it's the TV, I don't know if it's the tracks or whatever, but they have races and practices and qualifyings running at the same time, just cannibalizing each other's viewership. I think it's a really idiotic move on whoever's coming up with it. I remember this happening with Lime Rock Park last year, and we'll probably deal with that again with Lime Rock Park this year. I personally think it's just incredibly idiotic because we have Truck Series qualifying at 5 p.m. on Friday, and also at 5 p.m. on Friday, we have O'Reilly Series practice on the CW app, followed by O'Reilly Series qualifying, and then we'll look ahead to Saturday as we have Cup Series practice at 10 a.m. on Prime Video, followed by Cup Series qualifying also on Prime Video. And then we have another cannibalizing situation as we have the Only Bulls Green Flag 150 on Fox at St. Pete for the Truck Series, and that will be at 2 p.m. And then at 3 p.m., we have the Focused Health 250, the O'Reilly Series race on CW. And then we move over to Sunday. We have the Duramax Grand Prix on Fox. That is the Cup Series race at COTA. I would also like to note it is a couple of series are sharing the track with the Craftsman Truck Series. You got one of my favorite series out there this weekend with the MX5 Cup racing a race on Saturday morning and also on Sunday afternoon. And then you have the IndyCar Series opener, the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg at noon on Fox. That'll probably lead right in to the COTA race later on in the day. Real quick before I move on to the facts, I want to ask the boys. I'll start with Tyler on this one. Tyler, how do we feel about the viewership potentially getting cannibalized with O'Reilly Series events and Truck Series events going on at the exact same time? I can't hear you. I guess I'll start with you, Cory. Cory, how do you feel about the potentially cannibalizing of viewership? And yes, I could hear you, Tyler.
Honestly, it's kind of dumb, to be honest. Like,
Yeah, it is.
how could you have both of them on at the same time? I know. When we were talking about Atlanta and the Truck Series, like, I don't know why it's not Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I guess they run it on Saturday to get more viewership because people are off, and you just get more views on a Saturday than a Sunday. But now you have people that can only watch one of the two races. Like, you and me watch most of these races every week. So now it's going to be like, well, how's the Truck Series going? How's the O'Reilly Series going? I don't know, it's kind of dumb. It just makes no sense. As a sport, you'd shoot yourself in the foot like that.
Yeah, it doesn't really make much sense to me, especially since we don't have as much viewership as we used to begin with. And the Truck Series is hot right now. It started off the season with a whole bunch more viewers in Daytona, had almost 100,000 more viewers than it did last year for Atlanta. So I think this is a really idiotic move. I don't know if it's TV that can't agree on it or if this was NASCAR's decision, but it seems like almost every single time we end up having races in two different racetracks during the weekend, like the Truck Series is going one place and the O'Reilly Series is going somewhere else, that they end up being at the same time when it comes to a lot of their sessions. Like me personally, I'll probably have one of the races on the TV and then one of the races on the laptop or something. I don't know if picture-in-picture is a thing anymore, but if that exists, you can maybe do that. And it's just, my full focus isn't going to be on one or the other, which I'm not a big fan of. I think it's silly. So Tyler, what are your thoughts on the cannibalization of potential viewership when it comes to scheduling these things at the same time?
I just don't understand how they pulled that off contract-wise between the two companies. I mean, I don't understand how either company agreed to that and thought it was okay. Seemed very strange to me.
Yeah, I just think it's really idiotic. I don't know who's making these decisions. I don't know if it's the racetracks or the networks. I don't get it. I don't know how NASCAR signs off on these schedules. I don't know how the networks themselves don't sign off on these schedules, because if they're signing off, if the networks are signing off on these schedules, they're just being petty and just trying to take viewership away from the other network, when in the long run they're both losing viewership probably. I think it's one of the dumbest things that NASCAR does. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about the potential cannibalization of viewership with the O'Reilly Series and Craftsman Truck Series races both going on at the same time on Saturday. All right, let me quickly go through the facts. Then we'll get some thoughts from the boys on COTA and go through our weekly picks. The Duramax Grand Prix at Circuit of the Americas. The stages end at laps 20, 45, and it's a 95-lap event. The track is located in Austin, Texas. This is the second year that they're racing on the shorter version of the circuit. I think it produces a lot better racing. It's 2.4 miles, just below 2.5 miles. The track opened as a Formula One facility back in 2012. Almost 10 years later, in 2021, they had their first Cup Series race. Some of you may remember it was that huge rainstorm. Bunch of rain came through. Martin Truex Jr. almost died, for Pete's sake, and Chase Elliott ended up taking the win home in that race. Not really an active win leader. We've had five different winners in 5 races, and last year's winner was unfortunately not Kyle Busch. It was Christopher Bell who won last year's race. And then the notable entries that we have for the weekend in the Truck Series at St. Pete, we have Dario Franchitti with Jimmy Johnson at crew chief. We have Adam Andretti making his second straight start with Tricon. We have Connor Mozak racing for Spire, very talented road course racer. We have a blast from the past. Colin Braun has made a return to NASCAR. Some may remember him racing for Roush in the Truck Series all those years ago. And then we have Landon Lewis in the number 45 for Nice Motorsports. One of my favorite younger drivers. I think he's potentially one of the more talented drivers below the age of 16. I think he has not below the age of 16. He's above 16 now, but he's one of the best younger prospects in the sport right now. Kevin Harvick has a huge belief in Landon Lewis. We have Hinchtown, James Hinchcliffe, making his first NASCAR start in the number 77 for Spire Motorsports. And then we'll look over at the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and we have Connor Zilich and SVG both racing for Junior Motorsports this weekend in the O'Reilly Series. I think it's going to be mano a mano between those two for the win all race long. We have the best young prospect right now, I would say, and that is Brent Cruz in the number 19. I think he will be racing the remainder of the races because he is turning 18 here in a couple of weeks. Then we have Sage Karam, open wheel racer. He's had a good amount of experience in the O'Reilly Series at this point, driving the number 55. And then I'm very surprised we didn't have more road course ringers or open cars racing in the Cup Series this weekend, but we do have Jesse Love driving the number 33 for Richard Childress Racing this weekend. And the weekend weather report, that weather is for Austin, Texas for COTA, and it looks like it's going to be clear all weekend and roughly around 80 degrees all weekend long. So a pretty nice weekend for racing in Austin, Texas. Okay, right before we move on to our picks, I do want to get the boys' quick thoughts on Circuit of the Americas and how they feel about it as a road course. It might not be as good as Road America, but it's still pretty good, isn't it, Tyler? Or is it better than Road America?
It's definitely better than what am I thinking right now?
Road
Than COTA.
America?
Yeah, Road America is definitely better than COTA for sure. For sure. So I don't know. I miss it. I wish they'd bring it back.
But how do you feel about COTA though itself? Like, is there any parts of COTA you really like? I'm a big fan of like the hairpin they have up the hill. I think that's very cool. I don't see any tracks have something like that. I think that's very cool feature of the track.
It definitely brings on some of the coolest camera angles NASCAR has to offer. That's for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful facility. I went there last year. You can tell that track was built for Formula One. The stands are very different compared to a lot of NASCAR stands. The bathrooms are pristine, very nice. And you can tell they built it for fans as well because they have a bunch of stuff to do around the racetrack. And in my opinion, probably the best spot to sit is in turn 1. If you sit in turn 1 in the grandstands, you can see like 95% of the racetrack, which is unheard of with road courses. You usually only see the cars for a second or two, and then you won't see them again for a whole minute. But at COTA, you can see the whole racetrack from turn 1 pretty much, which is pretty badass. They also have a big hill right below the grandstands in turn 1 as well. They have a big area of grass below the grandstands where you can sit on the hill, where it's just where you can put. I don't know if you could put chairs there. I don't remember actually seeing a lot of people with chairs there, but they had blankets and stuff. Really nice facility. But Cory, what are your thoughts about COTA?
I like it. I think for the road course racing, it's one of the better tracks we have, and I like what they did last year in making it shorter. I think it made the racing more entertaining and it kept the field a little closer. So, I mean, I'm a fan of COTA.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of COTA myself. I think a lot of people shit talk COTA, but I think it just gets lumped in with road course talks. A lot of people that are NASCAR fans just don't like road courses. I understand that. NASCAR isn't built off of road courses. Back in the day, they would usually only have 2 road courses a year. At one point, it was only 1 road course a year. That's why Riverside was such a big deal, because it was the only road course a year, and sometimes they would start the season at Riverside even before the Daytona 500. So I get it. A lot of people don't like road courses, but Circuit of the Americas is a state-of-the-art facility. It's top notch. It's not the best racetrack entertainment wise I've ever been to, but when it comes to just like if I brought a casual to the race that wants to just be able to chill and relax and have good facilities, have a good bathroom, and have all make it look pretty. Circuit of the Americas is the prettiest, most picturesque track I have ever been to by leaps and bounds. It's a great facility, a beautiful racetrack. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about the racing at Circuit of the Americas, and how do you feel about the facility of COTA? All right, now that we're done with everything else, let's get to our weekly picks. So let's update our weekly picks. Cory hit the jackpot last week. He got a top 5 with Ross Chastain, got the weekly win. But then with our first ever attempt of a Hail Mary bonus, he picked Carson Hocevar. Me and Tyler approved it. I don't know what Tyler's mindset was going into approving it, but I personally approved it because I thought Hocevar was going to wreck himself or something during the race, was going to get overly aggressive and do something. That's what I thought was going to happen. And Hocevar ended up getting a top 5, which got him a couple of bonus points on top of his Ross Chastain points. So he ended up scoring 7 points in total this last week, Cory did, and went from 2 points to 9 points, leapfrogged me into second place in the points. Tyler ended up finishing second in the weekly results this past week with a pick of Chase Elliott, and then I finished last out of all of us with Brad Keselowski as my first pick. Tyler leads the points with 11, and I have 6. I'm in last, so I would get the first pick this week. Cory would get the second pick this week, and Tyler would get the third pick. And we did agree upon last week that we will not be doing Hail Mary bonuses for Daytona, Talladega, and road courses. So there will be no Hail Mary bonus attempt this week. I would also like to make another note. We have so far picked for 3 races, and not a single one of our drivers has finished outside the top 20. So that's a pretty impressive way to start the year when it comes to our weekly picks, which if you watched me or Cory's weekly picks, we were either picking a guy winning or finishing top 5 or finishing behind the wall. Or if you were watching Tyler's picks, it was 8th, 9th, 10th, 8th, 9th, 10th. It was like every week he was finished right around 10th with his picks. So it's an interesting start for the year when it comes to our weekly picks. So I pick first, Cory picks second, and Tyler picks third. And I've been going back and forth in my head. I want to say the other guy is going to win, and I'm going to be real mad at myself if he does win because he's one of my favorite drivers. But if I let Cory have Shane Van Gisbergen one more damn time, I'm going to kill myself, okay? So I'm going to pick Shane Van Gisbergen, the driver of the number 88 for Trackhouse. No, not the 88 anymore. He's driving the 97 now. The 97 for Trackhouse Racing at Circuit of the Americas. And Cory was asking earlier who I was going to pick But now we probably know who Cory's gonna end up picking. Cory, who is your choice to win COTA?
Who's ready to see Red Bull in victory lane? Let's
Brian
go.
Vickers is gonna
Connor
win.
Zillich.
Oh, never mind.
Connor Zillich, baby.
So you heard it here first. Cory has taken Connor Zillich to get his first career win in the Cup Series in the number 88 for Trackhouse. And this is where it gets really interesting because I think it was a guarantee that me and Cory were going to take Shane and Zillich, and then Tyler was just going to have to pick up the pieces of what is left. Tyler, who is your pick to win the Duramax Grand Prix?
Give me Mr. Michael McDowell.
Oh, Mickey D. I did not expect that. And that's actually probably a pretty good pick, too. I think that's Michael McDowell is a very talented, very underrated road course racer. I think that could have been a big brain pick from Tyler there. Michael McDowell could be a very big surprise. And I was suggesting to him before the show he should probably pick Reddick. But at the same time, he might want to use Reddick in this 8-race series. So it's probably a good take to pick Michael McDowell, one of the best road course racers in NASCAR, I would say. So just to overview our picks one more time, I have decided to pick the driver of the number 97 SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, or as Joey Logano would call him, Hamburger, to win at COTA. Cory has decided to pick Connor Zillich. All the Zillbillies are going to be very happy about that, driving the number 88 to get his first win. And then Tyler has decided to pick Michael McDowell, Michael McD, to win the Duramax Grand Prix. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Who is your pick to win at COTA, Circuit of the Americas, this weekend for the Cup Series? Also, if you want, leave below your picks for the O'Reilly Series and Craftsman Truck Series at St. Pete. And that will do it for this week's edition of Hit the Pacecar post Atlanta. Tune in again next week and watch another episode of Hit the Pacecar, whether you're watching on X, YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify. Like, subscribe, follow, whatever you got to do. Comment on anything we talked about today. Even comment on things we didn't talk about today. We couldn't fit everything into the show. You see how long this show already is. We couldn't talk about Corey Day and a bunch of other things that happened this weekend. Raja Karuth put on a hell of a show. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. And I'll send it to the boys for last word. Tyler, do you have any last words for the people before your laptop explodes?
I don't know. Do I have any last words? Am I wording?
Yes, you are wording.
Oh, there we go. So yeah, I actually have some last words. Go Carson. Man's gonna kill it. He's saving our sport.
I would have geeked if it cut you off right after you said go. It's like, what did he say? Go. He said go Cody where?
He said go Carson where?
Carson where? Oh, I like Carson. NASCAR's favorite Carson. Cory, you got any last words for the people?
Nope, that's it.
He said nope.
Hell yeah for Haas Factory Team.
Hell yeah for Haas Factory Team. That's my last words as well. Hell yeah. Sheldon Creed is an O'Reilly Auto Parts Series winner. He's a winner. But let me know your thoughts in the comments on everything we talked about here today. Tune in for next week's edition of Hit the Pacecar. But for now, he's Cory. He's Tyler. I'm Trackside Larry. We're the Pacecar Boys. And I'm saying peace.